Today, we are going to talk about Barbies. I've been promising you a Barbie video for a while, and here it is. But we're not going to talk about the entire doll. We are going to talk about Barbie bodies. And there are two reasons for this. One, believe it or not, these bodies are valuable. You look at a Barbie, you think, oh, it's all about the head and the hair and the pretty makeup. And no. A Barbie body can sell for serious money. And this particular Barbie body can sell in parts for a great deal of money. I just saw a collection of Barbie body parts, and we're not even talking nice parts. We are talking scruffy, chewed up, missing finger parts. And they're asking $149 for it, and they'll probably get it. I know, go figure. Doll collectors are a strange breed. The bodies alone are worth serious money. But there's another thing we're going to do when we talk about Barbie bodies, and that is we are going to bust the myth of the number 2 Barbie body. We are just going to slam that. We are going to put it in a coffin, and we're going to bury it 6 feet under. There is no number 2 Barbie body. And there are sellers out there who will take a doll like this, which is probably worth $800 to $1,500 depending on condition, etc., and charge as much as twice that because the doll allegedly has that mythical number 2 Barbie body, and people will pay for it. But by the time you're through watching this video, you are not going to be one of them. So stay tuned. This is a number 3 Barbie doll, and we are going to start off our little Barbie body tutorial with this doll. And the reason why is because the expensive Barbies, the Barbies that are worth the big bucks, are the first 4 Barbies, and they all have a lot in common, although they have their differences. And we are going to start with a number 3 because all 4 of the first Barbies came from the same set of molds. Now, the first 4 Barbies are identified by that number. The first Barbie issue was a number 1 Barbie. The second was a number 2, number 3, number 4. Now, this is not what Mattel called them. This is what subsequent collectors and dealers have called them to differentiate between them because they do have differences. And in some cases, those differences are wrapped up in the body, and in other cases, they're wrapped up in the head, the face paint. But we're starting with the bodies. We're going to ignore Barbie's face. So why would we ignore Barbie's face? Well, let me pull something out and show you. I'm digging this out of my Franken Barbie box, by the way. Here, Franken Barbie box. This is a box of Barbie doll parts. All Barbie collectors and dealers have one of these. Don't let them tell you otherwise. These are Barbie torsos. These are later torsos, so we're not going to be dealing with these particular torsos. But what I want you to notice is this. This is called a neck knob. Now, notice that this one is rather conical in shape, and this one is sort of disc-shaped. This is the first of the neck knobs. The first 5 dolls all had this. The first 4 that we're going to be discussing later, and then this, which is a number 5 body. They had a disc-shaped knob, and then Mattel changed it. So why did Mattel change it? Well, I'm going to show you. This is a doll head. This is a scruffy little midge doll head of no consequence. All right, watch. See how easy that was? And take it off. Now, ordinarily, with an old doll, I would soak it in boiling water before I tried anything like that to make sure the head didn't split. But as I said, this is just a scruffy little midge head that's worth almost nothing, so it's not a big deal. But I also wanted you to see how easy it was for the original owner, the 8 or 10-year-old girl who owned this doll, to take it apart, put it back together, pop the Barbie head off one doll, pop the midge head off another, switch them up. It shames me to admit it, but I did that myself when I was a kid all the time. If I wanted my little blonde doll wearing the blue dress and it was on my brunette doll, bang, switch the heads. It was easier than changing the clothes. Mattel knew they were doing this, hence the easier to change neck knob. Also, there were dolls that Mattel marketed as heads only. The Fashion Queen doll, for example, was a doll that came out as a head and 3 little wigs, and that was it. You took it home, you popped your head off, you put this new head on, you put the wigs on it, etc. Hair Fair Barbie was another doll that came as a head with little hair, little weaves, I guess you'd call them nowadays, little braided things that you would stick onto the doll's head. Mattel knew by the 6th iteration of Barbie, which would have been 61, 62, after Barbie had only been on the market for about 3 years, Mattel knew children were doing this. What that means to us now as collectors of vintage Barbies is we get a body like this, we have no idea if that head was in fact originally on that body. From my own personal experience as a child playing with these dolls, I would have to tell you the odds are not good. I did it. All my friends did it. I don't know anybody, in fact, who didn't do it. So if I had my original Barbies back from the early 60s and somebody looked at me and said, swear to me, that's the head that came with the doll, I couldn't do it. It's really impossible. So that's another reason we are going to be looking at bodies and not heads, because there is no guarantee that this body and this head originally went together. Now, with this doll, it's a number 2-3 body and a number 3 head, which means it's appropriate. There's no discrepancy between the head and the body. If I were, oh, my apologies, that's the number 4, my goodness. If I were to switch heads on these dolls, now let's take a look. You can clearly see the color difference. Oh yeah, that would be a problem. But as long as it's the right head on the right body, we're in business. So let's talk about the bodies, and we're going to start from the bottom up. All right, Barbie's foot has a mark on the bottom. In this case, it's on the instep, and it's an incised mark, and it reads Japan, all caps, as if it were carved in. Now, it was not. That was how the mold was configured. They were not literally carving letters into all the God knows how many millions of dolls they were putting out from the mold. There is another mark, and that is Japan in the box, and it's a little different. Japan is in a little square box, and it's carved out as a relief. So the background is carved out, the box is indented, and the letters are flush with the surface of the doll's foot. That mark was also on the right foot. They were always on the right foot, but it's on the heel. Now, there was no mark on the ball of the foot, because this doll, if she were a number 1 doll, this is how the body would come off the assembly line. This is the body. holes would have been drilled in her feet. They would have been angled back toward the ankle, and they would have had little copper tubes in it. That's because the first Barbie, the number one Barbie, had a stand with two little prongs. You spread the doll's legs apart, drop them on the prong. That's how the doll stood. The reason for this was because that was how the Build Lily dolls stood. And the Build Lily dolls were the inspiration for Barbie. It was a German doll, approximately the same size, the same body type. It's pretty unique, the first sort of fashion doll of this sort. That was the Build Lily stand, so that was what Mattel copied. Very shortly, Mattel realized that drilling holes in the feet of these vinyl dolls and inserting copper tubes, now you had to put the copper tubes in because, as you can see, this vinyl is rather thin. And let's see if I can show you this. Oh, I can. Look at that. You can see this is very, very pliable vinyl. Now, I don't imagine I could do that in January, but as you know, the weather's been very brutal here. So, oh yeah, let's look. Oh, let's just bend the daylights out of these because we can. So the holes had to be reinforced, or those two little prongs, you'd pop the doll on, the doll would fall over and break off at her ankles. That was a very expensive proposition, but it also explains why the marks are where they are. And we're going to get into the marks later because that's important. But for now, solid legs. First 4 dolls, solid vinyl legs, bendy, especially the first 3. Also, red nail polish. All right, as we move up the doll's leg, oh, by the way, sometimes the nail polish is not there. Sometimes it's just been worn off. Sometimes it was put on poorly at the factory. Not all dolls will have a nice, this one is in fact very nice. This is a doll with a lot of nice red nail polish. They don't all come like that. It'll be worn, it'll be, just a little off center. They're toys. Mattel was not making dialysis machines. They were making toys. So good enough was good enough. As we move up the doll, right here, right across her hips on the leg, there is a mold mark. It's very hard to see. I'm sure you're not going to be able to see it on the camera. You probably would have a great deal of difficulty seeing it even if you held the doll in your hands. Both sides, very hard to see, but you can feel it. That is characteristic of the first 4 dolls. Later dolls do not have this. Now, as we move up, we come to Barbie's butt. Now, Barbie's right butt cheek is going to say Barbie. And there's, in the first 3 dolls, it's going to say Barbie, TM. And then underneath, Pat's Penned, and underneath that, 1958. 58, Barbie came out in 59, but they did the mold work in 58. 1958 by Mattel Inc. on 3 lines. Right, those are the marks you're looking for. Some of the number 4 dolls also have this same mark, but some also have Barbie with R in a circle after Barbie. And that's because Mattel was granted the registration about midway through the production of the number 4 dolls, and they changed out the molds accordingly because, of course, they had the registration mark and they wanted to use it. There is a number on the left butt cheek. Everybody thinks it's important. No, it's not. It's a mold mark. If this doll came off the assembly line and there was something wrong, for example, like a gouge in the torso, something like that, that mold mark told them exactly where to go to find the machine that had created the bad doll. That's all it was. How to fix the doll, how to find the defective mold. In this case, the number is 39. There is no number 39 Barbie. No. Um, this one, the number 4, actually has a number 44. Now I know you're probably thinking, wait, that's a number 3 and she's got a 39. That's a number 4 and she's got a 44. No, just coincidence. I've seen numbers that sounded like a game of Battleship, B-17, A-21. It means nothing. And right now you can go on eBay and you can find bubble cut dolls. Now remember, all the early dolls had ponytails, even though we're not dealing with the heads. These early dolls were not bubble cuts. And the seller is saying, this is a number 2 Barbie. She's got a 2 on her butt. No. She could just as easily have a 39, a 44, or a B-17. It makes no difference whatsoever. Left cheek, ignore, meaningless. As we go up, this torso is solid. Remember these? These are hollow. Let me see if I can get it so the light will shine through so you can see. Absolutely hollow. 1 through 4, solid torso. That's one of the reasons these dolls are lumped in the same category, the first 4, because they had so many similar traits, because they all came off the same series of molds. Now, as we move down again, because we've gone up, take a look at the arms. Look how bendy. Ooh, yeah. Here's little Barbie the contortionist. Now wait, let me grab an arm out of the Franken Barbie box. These are arms from number 5, number 6 dolls. Even in the July heat in Pennsylvania, this vinyl is not soft enough to get much of a bend out of it. So if you are looking at old dolls like this at yard sales, at flea markets, give that a try. That is going to be one of the easiest determinants. And look how much that bends. You're not going to be mistaken about whether or not that is an early doll by bending. The later dolls simply will not do that. Now, the other thing, and I know you've seen Jocelyn do this, and everybody thinks she has completely lost her mind, is sniff. Crayola crayon. These dolls were made with a vinyl that had similar components to the basic mix for wax crayon. Oh my, the smell is just so distinctive. Yeah, the dolls smell like crayons. Don't be afraid to sniff them. If the doll has been lying out in the open for a while, in other words, if you're seeing the doll in an open-air flea market or yard sale, the smell might not be quite as strong as if the doll had been confined in a box for the last 10 years, but it'll be there, and it will be very distinctive. Oh, I should have mentioned this too. Red nail polish on the hands. It's a very strong red. With the earlier dolls, the earlier the doll, the less likely it was to be neatly painted. And you'll find, sort of polish all over the place, as they seem to have gotten better with it over time. So now, what's up with the colors? This doll, this number 4, was made within months of this number 3 doll. Mattel realized very quickly that the original vinyl formulation, and that's the one they used for the 1, 2, and 3, was fading, and it was fading fast. They were barely able to keep up with this. So when they came out with the number 4 doll, and this is the difference between the number 4 and the earlier dolls in terms of the body, they changed the vinyl formulation. This one held its color. The early dolls all fade. Now, I have seen dolls that have been very slightly faded, almost not faded at all. They are all faded. They're faded somewhere. You're always going to be able to find fade. You find fade in the joints. Even on an unfaded doll, you'll find it in the joints. Although in most cases, nobody's going to let you do this, but boy, if you pop an arm off, you'll find the interior will have been faded. The reason I mention this is because there are some dolls that, for whatever reason, haven't faded as heavily as others. But like I say, they all fade. This is science. This is not magic. They faded because of the vinyl formulation. The first 3 dolls will have either a ghostly white look like this. Sometimes it's taken on a rather unattractive greenish gray. Other times it's more of a rosy color, but they are faded. Non-faded doll, you can absolutely see the difference. Okay. Now, remember I said this doll was a number 3. An expert would look at this doll and say, oh, I can tell you it's a number 3 right away based on the face. And that's because this doll has brown eyeshadow. Can you see that? It's brown. The only Barbies that had brown eyeshadow were the number 3s, and it wasn't all of the number 3s, only some of them. And this is one of the brown eyeshadow number 3s. And that's what an expert would look at first and foremost, because usually a doll is judged by the face. But again, as I said, this head could have been popped off another body. How would you know? An expert would look at this doll, and it's very easy to see that she's a number 4. First of all, the only dolls with the solid body and the tan skin are number 4s. But also, this doll has a special characteristic. This is a factory braid doll. Underneath that little white string that is holding her braid intact is a disintegrating rubber band, because it came off, this doll came from the factory with this braid. And only number 4 dolls had factory braids or factory buns. But the problem is, and I know this because when you look at dolls, if you know a little too much, sometimes knowing a little too much is deceiving. You look at that, say, factory braid has to be a number 4. Yeah, well, check the body just in case, because it's very easy to get tripped up by things. You know, you look at it and say, oh, I know all about that. No, check everything. Now, I said we were going to talk about the number 2, number 3 body. Only 3 of these dolls were faded. The number 1 doll has holes in her feet with the little copper tubes. The number 2 and the number 3 have exactly the same body. There is no number 2 body, no number 3 body. It's a number 2/3. No difference whatsoever. Now, there are people who believe erroneously that that mark I had told you about, Japan in the box, is a mark that was only used on the number 1 and number 2 dolls. No, not true. If you'll recall from our discussions of rose medallion porcelain, we talked about why they were marked China. U.S. Customs demands, and did at the time, that the country of origin be marked on the item. That's all this Japan mark means. These dolls were manufactured in Japan. U.S. law required they be marked accordingly. So the Japanese manufacturers put Japan. The only consideration they had in putting Japan on the doll's foot was that it not go on the ball of the foot because holes were going to go there. Didn't matter how they did it. So for most of the dolls, it was in-size Japan in the instep. But some of the molds had this Japan in the box. Now, it was a minority of the dolls, but it was not relegated to the number ones and number twos. It went right through the entire series, and I can prove it. Now, I know you're probably thinking to yourself, you can't possibly prove a negative. If you said this doll had Japan in the box, how would we know? That's not really a number two body, because didn't you just say kids flip the heads back and forth all the time? Well, yes, I did. But I'm not going to show you with a number three doll. I want to show you with the number four doll. Here we go. Japan in the box. I'm going to give you a close-up picture because I know you can't see it on the screen. Japan in the box. It went right through the entire series. 1, 2, 3, 4. They all used the same molds. They did not change the mold until they changed the torso and put that R, and subsequently, shortly thereafter, they ended up changing the entire configuration and going over to, this is a number 5 hollow body. No. So if a number 4 doll has Japan in the box, then you know a number 3 did too, because Mattel did not use one set of molds for the number 1, the number 2, skip the number 3, and bring those molds back into production for a number 4. No. All the way through. This, by the way, is extremely rare to have a number 4 doll with Japan in the box. I don't think it makes the doll especially valuable, but it's just extremely rare, because the Japan in the box molds, which had produced, by the time this doll came out, millions of dolls, were getting very worn. And when I show you the close-up of the mold mark, the picture, you're going to be able to see that for yourself, because it's fuzzy and blurry. And I also took a picture of the doll's butt so that you can see fuzzy, blurry. By the time they got around to the number 4s, the old molds had pretty much had it. Nevertheless, absolute proof. There is no number 2 Barbie body. So those people who are off selling their dolls saying, oh, look, it's a number 3 with a number 2 Barbie body, I'm afraid they're going to have to get their extra $1,000 from somebody else, because now that you've seen this, you're not going to be stupid enough to fall for that one. Thank you very much. All right. So let's take a look at the pictures. I want you to see the marks so you're familiar with them, and I want you to see some good photos of these dolls next to each other so that you can see the difference in the coloration. And after we see the pictures, when we come back, we are going to talk about a little business. Okay, tomorrow is Monday, and I'm going to do the first of the Monday videos tomorrow. And I thought what I'd like to do is show you a project that will absolutely come in handy for your thrifting buys. And that is how to paint a lamp, or in the case that I'm going to be demonstrating, a bird cage. Because we go into thrift stores, antique stores, junk stores, flea markets all the time. We find these lovely pieces that have been poorly painted, or their original finish is spotty, rusty, messy. And It doesn't take much imagination to see that if you could just get them looking nice, you could sell them for a profit. I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, one more little piece of business before we go, and that is Lorraine Gomez, you have won a pen, and I need you to get in touch with me. I'll hold it for one more week, but at the end of this coming week, if I haven't heard from you, it's going right back into the pool because way too many people want those pens. Oh, and one more thing tomorrow. I am going to be announcing the winner of that beautiful Royal Hager vase giveaway that was so generously donated to our site by Kelly Williams. And she's got the vase all packed up. It's waiting for you. We're going to announce the name tomorrow. And the lucky winner will need to get in touch with me. Again, please, within a week. So many people wanted this vase. If you don't jump on it, 1 week and one of them is going to get it. So we will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.